You're listening to Welcome to Eloma, a podcast for highly ambitious dreamers who get shit done. I'm your host, Kiley Peters. This is a space where we talk about wrestling with our authentic self. Now, this is something I've been exploring at length over the last 18 months. And in full transparency, I've been struggling with how honest to be in certain situations with who and when. And for me, I feel like honesty and authenticity go hand in hand in most cases. However, I feel like as a leader, I think it can sometimes be a bit of a blurry line on how much to share and feel in fear of potentially failing your team. So I'm excited to get into this with today's guest, today's guest is Jessica Zweig, founder of SimplyBe Agency, author of Be a No Bullshit Guide to Increasing Your Self-Worth and Net Worth by Simply Being Yourself, and co-host of the SimplyBe podcast. She's a Forbes expert on personal branding and authenticity. And I know she's also been through the ringer this past year. So I'm excited to get into it. I've been a fan of Jessica's for the better part of a decade, had the privilege of meeting her earlier this year. And she's been an incredible inspiration to me, my agency, my career, and my personal brand. So without further ado, welcome to Eloma, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved meeting you in person at the beginning of this year. And to have, the opportunity to come on your podcast, which is, I think, a total evolution of everything you were working on when we met in February. And It was just very, very cool, very full circle, very honored to be here.
Well, I'm super pumped to have you. So let's go ahead and dive into it. In the conversations I've had with so many owners, it seems to be a bit of a common theme this past year of 2021. That it's been challenging. So I know there are a lot of people reinventing themselves, trying to figure out what really matters and are trying to make, and in many cases are making some big changes. So tell me a little bit about what this last year has been like for you.
Well, I have so much to say. I know this is so timely, this question and this conversation, like real timely. So, I think if you're a leader of a small business or an entrepreneur of a big business, if you're just a leader of people, I think that the pandemic was like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like we all went in.
I love that.
Real fucked up. Now we're like out. We're like, what the fuck was that? And we're just now.
What's happening? Where are we?
What's happening? What's reality? Was this reality? How is our reality shaped based on that warped reality?
Yep.
And everyone is never the same. And when it comes to how you run a business and dealing with culture and work from home expectations and employee voice and compensation and the great resignation, or is it the great reshuffling, and everyone wanting to, flex their own identity, which God bless, right? And there's a whole new level of like consciousness in the world because we all took a beat, but we all experienced trauma. And the leaders are the ones during that crazy Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobes were unfortunately the ones who had to hold it all together and survive. And now we're on the other side, and it's like really hard. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, like we're talking real time.
Yep.
It's been hard for me to not feel bitter for how unaware and at times ungrateful your team can come across. We all dealt with things. Every single person in the world experienced their own trauma during our shutdown, quarantine, the fear of dying, right? Losing jobs, all of the things. The amount of risk and self-sacrifice that leaders had to do during that time, especially small business owners had to do during that time. The amount of risk and self-sacrifice that actually happens on a daily basis as a leader that is not ever seen. Therefore cannot be appreciated. It wears on your soul. And I was at dinner last night with some fellow founders, female founders, and one of them told me that a month ago they did their like quarterly offsite, and it was all on Zoom because they're virtual, and there are 40 people. She's got 40 people.
Jeez.
And they surprised the entire company with a 5% raise all at once.
Wow.
And there was wow, which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for her. And nobody said thank you. Nobody said thank you. Yeah, I know. That was my thought.
That hurts my soul.
Me too. And so I think, in many ways I try to have grace. I try to lead from love. I don't try to lead from love. I do. And I do my own work, and I just try and see people as people with, their own lives to care for, and no one's really ill-intended or malicious. But there's just a level of, there's so many things that people don't see. And there are even more things to navigate in a post-pandemic world. Like I just imparted a work from home policy to be more flexible, because that's what many of my staff wanted. Well, not all of my staff wanted that, but many of them did. So those that didn't are upset about it. And it's like, you just don't at the times know where to go, because you have to take everyone into account. It's a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose. So where I am today, to answer your question, is really just breathing through the experience of evolution and expansion as a leader, as my business grows with people and problems. More money, more problems is a true thing. Biggie Smalls said that once.
Yeah.
That's a fact. And so just breathing and ensuring that I take care of myself through the people. Like I don't have, I'll have a big team. I have a big world, but I would say I really only have like 4 or 5 people that are like inner close to me in a daily basis. And I lean on them and love them, and they keep me sane. And also to do my own spiritual work, as you know, and focus on joy in different ways. Like I love to write, I love to paint, I love to dance, I love to be a creative, I love to travel. Like putting those practices in place as strategies for my success and thriving are also things I actively do. So that's real time, kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay. Side question. I didn't know you like to paint. What do you like to paint?
I wouldn't say paint, draw. I mean,
draw.
I do like water. Yeah. I do like watercolor pencils, like markers. I have a sketchbook.
For funsies.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed. My paintings look like, or my drawings look like I'm, 12, but that's okay. They're
but
nice.
Kudos to you for being you and still having hobbies. Like that's hard. Good job.
It is. I don't have much time for them, but like, I have to overschedule. My life is so overscheduled. Yeah. So I actually schedule writing time. I schedule dance time. I schedule nature time. I don't get much of it. It's typically my weekends. Yeah. But, at least I get it, and it's okay. Like I am here for the lessons that this chapter in my life and career are teaching me. And tell myself all the time that like wherever I'm going and evolving to, like I'm exactly where I need to be.
So what lessons are you being taught right now?
I am being taught. Okay. So, you follow me, my vibe, and I am a very spiritual person. I believe I'm here to spread the light, be the light, know the light, show the light, teach the light, right? That's really what I'm here to do. And one of the biggest vehicles for the light is love, just really showing up in your heart. And so what lessons am I learning right now, Kiley, is how to really walk my own walk. Like I can say I'm highly evolved, spiritual, loving, kind soul, light worker. And on a daily basis, I get stressed. My buttons get pushed. I'm frustrated with this team member or that client or this troll or whatever it might be. And so how can I show up with wisdom, a higher wisdom, and be a loving presence, whether energetically for that person, whether they feel it or not, like really allow myself to switch into a perspective that allows for humanity and compassion in a situation I am challenged with, and impart that onto myself at the same time. And that is an active practice. Like I was struggling with a situation over the weekend, and I was so angry about something, and I did not like the way that the other parties in the situation were acting. And instead of being angry at them, I was able to see them more wholly and understand they're in fear. They're feeling criticized and rejected and upset. And so they're acting out because they're not fully, seeing themselves, as divine as neither am I, and so instead of being angrier, I can be compassionate that they're shut down and operating from a place of fear. I don't have to meet them there. And so that's a real lesson. Like I'm writing my second book right now. So it's also helping me. And I'm like, how can I be a teacher of this shit if I'm not living it? And so that's a lesson. It's happening.
Which is fair. And I appreciate that. And that's like such an incredible level of self-awareness, but you are still human.
Totally.
So I think, and to wrap that back to our like theme of today's conversation of authenticity and leadership, I think, my experience is it's a balance between being very self-aware so that you can understand your honesty and your authenticity, but then making those decisions, just like you mentioned, as to how you're going to show up and how you're going to react and respond and what you can control, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the lessons that I'm also learning, and I think it's part of this, of like being authentic and showing up with love and being a transparent leader, and what's too transparent. It's leaders, people with titles of leadership are just people who are equally as sensitive, maybe at times, or emotional as everyone else. And so learning to draw emotional boundaries, mental compartmentalization, being more business and not letting people in, is the growth edge. And it's something that's become easier for me as my team has gotten bigger, because there are like layers and layers of people now between me and them, that when they're dealing with a bad day, like it's not my bad day, I don't even know about it half the time. Right. And I shouldn't. I got bigger things I got to focus on. And that's been great. But then there's still people that you do work closely with that, you're emotionally enmeshed and you care about people and you're invested in a relationship. And so that's been a struggle for me of how much do I really share? And I by principle been pretty transparent and vulnerable with my people. And I think that it has created something quite beautiful at SimplyBe. I think they feel good working here because of the way that I show up. But I've realized that there is a shadow side to that. And I'm not here to make everyone feel good all the time. My expectation is that you do your job, you perform, you do your job well. I pay you a salary. It's a transaction. And it's hard for me as a super empath.
I was going to say, like, even hearing those words come out of your mouth feels weird, but at the same time, I'm like really proud of you for saying those because that's hard. It is. And when you're a small business owner, you love your team. And so often we talk about our teams as like families and such. People have also said that can be really detrimental in a lot of ways. And so I'm really surprised and like proud to hear you talk about like this real line that feels like you're talking about in your drawing in this invisible sand. And so I'm just curious, like, what has happened for you over the last, I don't know, year and a half that has allowed you to become aware enough to start drawing these boundaries and naming that?
For sure. I mean, I think in many ways it's happened out of necessity, right? So in the last year and a half, my business blew up. I had a book come out in the market last year in February. which was a beautiful thing, a huge success. We had the largest revenue jump we've ever had quarter over quarter from Q1 to Q2 of 2021. The book came out in Q1, February. And by the end of Q2, June 30th, our revenue had grown by almost 50%. And that had never happened before in the history of our business.
To maintain.
It was hard. And so what happened, what's needed to happen since that point, I mean, I really can point back to that being one of the biggest pivot points of our entire history was the book launch. We went from here to here and we've maintained here. I mean, we've actually grown, right? Since the books, right. So I had no choice in 2021 other than to staff the fuck up, right? And I had to
Which was like the worst year ever to try to staff up.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes.
Because I had been hiring slowly over the course of those 5 years. And then the market was on our business. We couldn't hire people fast enough because here I was making the promise to the market that SimplyBe Agency is the place to work with or, be your partner. And the pipeline started to come in and we had no people to fulfill the promise. And I couldn't just hire anybody to fulfill the promise. I had to hire good, experienced, more expensive people than I had ever paid for in my life people. And people were harder, more expensive, ridiculously more expensive than they'd ever been. And harder to find, more particular than, it was a siege. And we grew from 9 people at the beginning of 21 to, I think with the end of the year, we had 23, 21. I mean, we basically doubled our team.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question about this invisible line in the sand that I've had to draw, I've just had no choice because I can emotionally take care of 6 to 10 people as a small boutique business and feel like a family. But at we're almost 26, 27 now. I don't even know. It's I don't have I do not have the emotional capacity. And I think I said the word bitter and I don't really mean that because I'm not a bitter person, but you grow a thicker skin, you grow an edge where you just don't have the time to care so much about what people think of you, how people are feeling. You care how people perform. That is what you need to do when you start to grow and the stakes get higher and the boats get bigger and the overhead is more expensive month to month. You know, that's by necessity. It's been by necessity.
So caring about performance, specifically about team members that you're responsible for, but tying it back to, we're talking about boundaries, we're talking about leadership, et cetera, and authenticity. What do you think is the connecting thread, or is there, between honesty, authenticity, and then maybe even leadership or personal branding, when we talk about taking this externally?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, I think that there's a fine line there as well. I think that in today's work environment, the expectation is that leaders give a shit. They give a shit about the world. They give a shit about issues. They give a shit about their people. They give a shit about their industries. They give a shit about impact. They give a bigger of a shit than just making money and driving profit. That is no longer acceptable, right?
Well, and I think it's so shallow and people see straight through it.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. And you just think about old school blue suit corporate America and you can't get by today and work with burgeoning hot talent, strong partners and alliances, get great media coverage unless you are aligned to authentic values as an organization. You just can't and still thrive and win. And the only way in which you can impart those values and communicate and reflect those values, in my humble opinion, my biased opinion, is through the leadership of those organizations, right? The personal brands and platforms of those people who are leading those organizations. A company can say, we care about Black Lives Matter, but the CEO saying that we care about Black Lives Matter, for example, is far more compelling and authentic. I'm just aligning to an issue in the world, right?
Yeah.
Women's rights, disability. I mean, the mass market has a higher expectation today than ever before that you align to values and walk your walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only way in which those messages resonate with authenticity and the vibration of believability is if that person, that leader, is self-aware of who they are and
Mm-hmm.
their own unique why and message and purpose and
Mm-hmm.
energy. And so that's where personal branding really does become a powerful asset inside of your organization when you allow your leaders to be seen in that way. And you have to sort of be vulnerable and honest and transparent and authentic to be believable. But that doesn't mean you have to throw it all on the table. You know, not everything is for the public domain. You know, my mass audience doesn't need to know about the fight I had last night with my husband, and that's why I'm in a bad mood today. Like that's not relevant, you know? Like
for everyone who had a fight with their husband last night, they're like, I get it.
Yeah, totally. Right. So it's a matter of being discretional, but also intentional and authentic. And there's definitely a blend and a balance you can strike.
So intentionality is really big for me. I 100% am on that board. But I love that you tossed in believability there. And then you also talked about vulnerability. So, and vulnerable leadership is something that I've been like really attached to for probably the last, I don't know, like 9 months or so. I don't even know like where we are in the year anymore. But for entrepreneurs listening, what advice would you have to give as to how to show up as your most authentic self, even when it may appear as or mean that you show up as a vulnerable leader? How do you navigate that?
I think that if you're just starting this journey and you're wanting to commit to being a vulnerable leader, it's baby steps first. I don't think that you can just come out the gate and after you've been a rather sort of two-dimensional figure to your team and all of a sudden sort of opening up about what you're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really micro actions, spending one-on-one time, getting to know the vulnerability of your people, making them feel like you are interested in who they are to create a space that feels organic for you to be who you are. I think that's number one. I think that, I'm always going to go back to like creating messaging, like understanding your own narrative, like building your brand identity, creating some content around it, coming from a place of service. So I think vulnerability without service is at times self-indulgent and emoting, right? And so when
I like that.
Yeah.
Vulnerability without service can be self-indulgent and emoting.
Yeah. And indulgent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I say this all the time, people don't care that much about you and how vulnerable you may or may not be. People care about themselves. That's just human nature.
Yep.
Ain't no shame in that game. That's where we're all born. And when we then come from a place of what can I do for you? What am I doing for you by being open, honest, vulnerable, authentic, transparent? When we're doing that for others, which, hey, if you're a leader, that should be your number one motivation every single day.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a bigger impact and effect in your vulnerability when people start to see that there's a higher reason for the way you're showing up and that you're creating a culture, creating a safe space, you're creating connection, you're creating opportunity for deeper relationship versus, hey, I just want people to know who I really am. Like at the end of the day, no one really truly cares.
Nobody cares. I love that. I think you touch on so many really important things there. But again, I really appreciate you calling out, like, there's a difference between sharing and being vulnerable to potentially emote pity or sympathy or whatever it is, right? And there's a difference between that and sharing in a way that could be kind of scary because it's private and personal and terrifying. It was hard to go through with the intent and the purpose of trying to connect with others, let them know they're not alone, share so they feel stronger, and, create that. So I love how you talk about the intention behind it. And one thing I want to want to just pull out there, because I know you have a pretty significant social following and you've been pretty vulnerable on social. And so I want to call that out because I think that's great. But I think that's also a really fine line. So we talk about vulnerability and leadership, and I can't tell you how many people I've talked to recently that are like, I hate social media. I don't want to do this. I know I have to do this, but I don't want to do this anymore. But so I wanted to ask you, like, how do you decide what is too much? How do you decide the appropriate level of vulnerability on social?
I love this question. Okay. So I have a lot to say about this.
All right, let's go.
I have a very biased opinion about it. So, okay. I'm going to just take you back. I'm going to use myself as the story, but this is what I've learned and the wisdom that I've experienced that I try to live on social. So I'm going to flash back to, I don't know, my late 20s. I was going through a really horrible breakup with my ex-boyfriend, like my boyfriend of my 20s. We were together for 5 years and we broke up and I was in a devastated place. And I was on Facebook. This was pre-Instagram. And I was sharing about it, like passive aggressive, emotional, like posts on a daily basis, like trying to catch his attention, being out with a different guy.
Be your best self. Totally best self. Yeah, for sure.
Kind of, yeah, but not, because I was a mess. And I had a woman in my life at the time. I'll never forget this. Her name was Stephanie. Shout out to Stephanie, wherever she is. She was older than me. She was more professional than me. She worked for a really big company and I was kind of a starving little creative entrepreneur. And she pulled me aside one day at, an event. She's like, I want you to know that I follow you on social media and I what you're doing is not a good look. Like, this is not going to build the reputation that I know you want ultimately. And your processing doesn't belong on the internet. Your processing belongs in your therapist's office. Don't do that online. And I was like,
wow, that's big.
It was huge. And she said to me, once you process and heal from your breakup, you can come back and talk about it and give advice to other women who are going through it, but you can't talk about it while you're going through it. And so bringing you to forward day where you follow me and you say, I'm really vulnerable today. I am vulnerable today. And I always, if you pay attention to my content, I want to talk about what I share versus the way I share it. So what I share is typically something I feel I have some sort of closure around or have enough wisdom behind. I'm not as charged around it that I can share it very vulnerably. And I architect my content to always leave the reader with a lesson, with inspiration, with a question for themselves, with education. It's never just about my story. It's always about, let's rise together, sisters. Cheers to our evolution. What part of your life can you look at differently today? Whatever it is, it's a little tiny anecdotal pieces of copy at the end of most of my posts. And then what I share, I kind of go back to that rule of thumb. Like, if I'm fighting with my husband, if I'm triggered by an employee, there are things I would love to fucking talk about online because I'm in it, and I don't, because it's not fair to the person that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
It's not classy. It doesn't serve me like at all, and it won't serve my audience. So there are lots of times I've wanted to get on the mic, and sometimes in my podcast, if I'm like struggling, I might have some innuendo, but I'm always talking above it versus like about it. And so it's nuanced, but I hope that story helped your listeners sort of frame out like the distinction and the fine lines of being vulnerable online.
I love that. And I think that's such a good call out, because you're right. When we're in the shit, we're emotionally charged, and it is talking about it and it is processing it. And you're right. Like, that Stephanie was right. Like, that's not helpful. That's just angry. That's just like teenage angst. Exactly. And one thing I found is I keep my journal as like a rolling Google Doc. And so when I get really worked up about stuff, I actually go into this rolling journal Google Doc and I just like word vomit all of my shit all over the place. And sometimes I surprise myself. I'm like, hey, I think I just found a nugget in here. Like, I'll just be like, why did so-and-so say so-and-so? And this doesn't make any sense. And they're wrong about that, but maybe they were right about that. And maybe I should think about that. Oh, shit. They were right about that. Oh, but it's like, for me, I like to write it out and work through it. But yeah, do that on your own time and then bring the golden nuggets back and share that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what social's for. It's value creation and connection. And we can't create value or create connection if we're being self-indulgent.
Yeah. Another question about social for you. So a couple months ago, Brene Brown came on social and was like, I'm taking a hiatus. We'll be back. And I was like, hold tight. Jessica did this earlier this year. Brene did this. And I was like, this is amazing. If Jessica and Brene can do this, I'm going to do this. But I want to talk a little bit about your decision to vocally say, I'm taking a break from social. And then you came back. Like, what was behind that decision and what prompted the return, if you will?
Yeah. So I've lived my life on social media since 2008. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Never once. I got on Facebook in 2008. Then it was Twitter. Then it was Instagram. Then it was LinkedIn. Then it was Pinterest. Then it was Snapchat for a while. And I just, homed in on my channels, Instagram, LinkedIn mainly. Mm-hmm. But I haven't taken a fucking break since 2008. So then you kind of look at my career in like a roadmap, and I would say one of the highest peaks, if you will, of my mountainous summit was 2021 when I launched my book.
Yeah.
And I had to be on social media on steroids. I went from posting 3 to 4 times a week to 7 times a week. Constant stories, constant DMing. Like I had a mission to promote my book, to get my book into thousands of hands, and it worked. And then I found myself literally a year later. It was February of 2022 when we met, and it was like I had really not only run out of gas, but it was like net negative deficit in my gas tank. Like I was burnt out. I had a full on physical burnout, depletion, mentally, emotionally, everything. And so I was talking to my therapist one of those afternoons, the end of January, early February. And it was as if like a star from the universe, like fell into my head and inside my brain. And it was like, you just need to take a break off of Instagram for a while. And it was like so clear. And I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, that's got to go. I'm going to check out of that place for an indefinite period of time. And I actually talked about it very vocally. And I have a really beautiful community over there. Like people are really engaged with me, and I feel them, and I know many of them now, by at least their social channels, but I feel a total connection to them. And I was also afraid of losing momentum and, losing followers and the algorithm. Like I mean, that was all there, but my mental health and my sense of peace was way more important than any of that. And I took, I think, 2 months off. And it was like, I thought I was going to take 30 days off, but I think I took more than that. Anyway, maybe 6 weeks. I don't really remember, but it was a slow tiptoeing back in, and to be honest with you, I love being back. Like I've become more inspired to create content. I feel very connected to my community, and that's very nourishing to be there for that reason. I don't like how addicted I am to the scroll and like
it is so
watching
addicting.
shit. It's garbage
it's
too.
So
most
addicting.
Of it is.
I'm like, this is so the nacho cheese Doritos of social media.
You got it. It is so nourishing. It doesn't offer you any nourishment.
No.
So,
but it's so addicting.
It's so addicting. And it also is a necessary evil in a beautiful way, because I get business from it. I grow community from it. I get clients there. Like it's unbelievable, the power of that place. And so I just, I'm more in flow with it now. Like there are certain days I'm on fire to create reels and content, and I feel like I gotta post this reel today. And then there are days where like 4 or 5 days go by and I don't really post anything and I don't have anxiety about it because I'm busy and I've got other priorities. And so it's a dance and I needed to take that break. And that break was beautiful. I'll probably do it again sometime. But I maybe won't make a big deal out of it next time because it really is just things all of our lives should ebb and flow like that.
Yeah. But I love that because I think what you're saying without saying the exact words is like you gave yourself permission to have better, quote unquote, balance, whatever that looks like. But you gave yourself permission to not be always on 1,000% of the time.
And the truth of the matter is, for those listening, and myself and you, like none of us are required to be on 1,000%. Like the only people who deserve 1,000% of you are probably like 2 or 3 people who really are the closest to in your life. Like, actually, that's not even true. You deserve 1,000% of you. That's it. Yeah. Not hundreds or thousands of people who don't really know you online. As much as their energy is beautiful and well-intentioned, you don't owe anything to anybody. And so I think the permission slip was huge. And I love that term.
No, I think it is. It's huge. And I think we as owners and entrepreneurs and women fail at that a lot. And so I think that's big. And I appreciate you saying that. One of the things that I want to call out as we talk about the last year and a half and growth and success and all these things, I struggled over the last year and a half because I was trying to scale my agency in a way that I realized was not authentic to me. And I had failed to define what that was. I failed to define success for myself. And then when I got really clear on it, just like the whole world fucking changed. So my question for you is, how do you define success for yourself, Jessica?
For Jessica or for my agency?
No, for you as a human.
Oh, okay. Good question. Success for me is peace. Honestly, that's all I want to feel at this stage in my life. That's why I'm moving to Nashville in the next couple of years, building a house in the middle of nowhere. Like, I want to be able to have peace in my relationships. I want to have peace with money. I want to have peace within my purpose and alignment, what I do day to day. I want to be able to go to sleep soundly, wake up not heavy. Like, for me, that's success. Mm-hmm. And I am also very clear that is at times an ideal, and that will ebb and flow in and of itself. And I am willing to make certain sacrifices and allow my life to be as not as peaceful as I want it to be for the short term, for longer term gain.
The long-term game. Yeah. Yep. And so congratulations, by the way, on making the decision and the move to Nashville. I saw you just got property and you're building your house. So what are you looking for maybe outside of peace in Nashville? Like what are you most excited about in terms of this next step of your life?
Well, honestly, by the time my house is done, it'll probably be like 24. Okay. 25, we're in no rush, and probably not 25, but 24. But I really love there's community of women there. I mean, I have been searching for more community of women in general. The pandemic changed all of our sort of social circles, I think, to some degree. People, went in different directions, and people had different experiences with quarantining and wanting to see people versus not wanting to see people. Yeah. And like, I just kind of lost touch, and things felt like things have shifted in my girlfriend group, if you will. Mm-hmm. And yet I still really long for sisterhood. It's a huge,
for sure,
value in my life. I am a woman for women. I'm a girl's girl. I need girlfriends. And anyway, so to Nashville's point, there's such a beautiful community of what I would consider awake, kind, dope women doing dope shit. Like, a huge community of them down
nice.
There. Like, I want to be a part of it.
Cool.
So that's kind of my criteria for like connection, right?
Like up to awake, kind, and dope.
Way kind and dope.
And doing dope like shit.
Dope shit. Yeah. For me to feel like I can relate to you, you know, like if you're not doing dope shit, we can still be friends, but
you have to do the dope shit. You can't just look at it. You have to do the dope shit and then we can talk. We can be friends.
I made the decision. I had a very powerful session with my life coach, Gina, a couple years ago. And she was like, she said something to me that I'll never forget. She was like, you want to surround yourself with people who are playing an even bigger game than you, that are like, not even so much like doing more successful, making more money, but are just like in a different stratosphere of consciousness,
like elevated,
elevated. Yes.
Yeah.
And I frankly have felt pretty stagnant in my social circle here because and there's nothing wrong with my friends who live in the suburbs and are housewives and raising families. They're beautiful women and I love them and they're all kind, sweet souls. And they're so genuinely supportive of me and I'm supportive of their lives. But, you know, it's like, I don't talk about my work with them. You know, I don't walk away from a lot of those relationships feeling like up-leveled, stimulated, and like challenged, you know, and I'm a self-growth junkie. And I want to be in community with women who are, when I mean awake, conscious. Like I want to be able to relate on a spiritual level. Kind, you can't be a bitch. Like I am such
so
a woman
over
for
it.
Women. I can't, no.
I'm so over mean girls. I'm so like, come on, guys.
No space for it, for cattiness, jealousy, gossip. That has zero place in my life. Yeah. And when I say doing dope women who are doing dope shit, I mean,
you mean exactly that. Dope women doing dope shit.
Yeah. Like that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Cause I like to be inspired.
I love it. Oh my gosh. So amazing. I want to see if I can get like one fun fact out of you that you have so much content out there. So I'm sure there's so many things that people know, but I'm wondering if there's something that people probably don't know about you, but is essential to your authentic state of being. Like a fun fact that like.
Fun fact about me.
That people don't know.
I have people don't know. God, I'm such an open book.
I know. So this might be tough, but I figured I'd try.
Okay, wait. I mean, how personal do you want me to get? As personal as I possibly can.
Girl, you can go wherever you want. Go for it.
Okay. I mean, gosh, I'm such an open book. This is going to be really fucking random and it might be shocking.
Good.
So I'm upset. I went on a juice cleanse like last year. I went back again this year.
Was it the Baja thing?
The Baja cleanse.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it was life-changing. It's like one of the most epic experiences of my life. I went last year, I went again this year. And last year, our first year I went, I learned about coffee enemas. And they are the most magical health hack ever. And I do them on a regular basis. I like do a coffee enema on myself at least once a week.
Okay, I'm sorry that I have to ask this question, but I'm going to need you to explain what the hell a coffee enema is. I'm so sorry. I got to ask.
Okay. So first of all, let me take you back to why it's magical, why I believe in that. So our health is completely determined by our gut, right? Like our gut, our digestive system is our second brain. Mm-hmm. And you can learn everything you need to know about your health based on like your poop. Like truly, like what's going on in your gut. And I have had horrible autoimmune triggers and issues my whole life. Mm-hmm. And it plagued me. I was terribly sick, on medication, surgery. And when I turned to holistic modalities and learned to heal my body from the inside out, my life changed. And so I've become obsessed with like all things wellness and you know, diet and food and what we put into our bodies, as well as how well it comes out of our bodies, is a huge part of is a huge foundation to our entire well-being. And so I'm sure you've heard of colonics. Are you familiar with colonics? No?
What? Oh, why Kylie. Don't you just educate? What?
Colonics are like basically a spa for your intestines. So you go to somebody who's a colon hydrotherapist. They stick a tube up your butt and they like
Good.
cleanse your colon with like water flushes, essentially.
Okay.
So a coffee enema is something you can do at home. You basically brew a specific organic coffee with water, organic distilled water, and you basically you cleanse your colon yourself through a coffee enema bag. And the reason why coffee is so powerful is because it actually, the way the enemas work, stimulate your liver, which is your most detoxifying organ in your body.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so when you do a coffee enema, you're not only purifying your colon, but you're actually stimulating your liver to purify all of the toxins in your body. And it helps. I mean, cancer patients do it. People with autoimmune diseases swear by them. And they help really not only purify your system, but they help to really elevate your mood, your energy. They change your entire attitude. Like I feel like $1 million when I do them. It changes my spirit as much as my physical body. And I really, really, I never thought I could stick a tube up my own butt, but I learned. It's
just
really
another skill you can add to your resume. You know,
I mean, you've got listeners who are like, holy shit, this girl's crazy. And then I guarantee that there are people listening to me like, yep, I know those are legit. So, I mean, if you're willing to do some research, it will change your life. And it was one of those things I never thought I could ever do. And that they're like a staple in my health regimen. So there you go, Kiley. That's something that I never fucking talk about, but now I do. And I have no shame about it.
I feel very honored. You
asked. I'm like, I'm such an open book.
And you
what
did
can
it.
I tell her that people don't know?
Hot shit, man. Holy cow, you did it. Wow. Thank you for that. Now I'm going to go Google so many things. God, so many things.
Go down the rabbit hole. My retreat host in Baja told me she wants to write a book and she wants to call it Coffee Enemas for World Peace. Because people walk around, we're so fucking angry. We're so stuck up. And
coffee enemas for world peace.
Coffee enemas for
Everyone just stick a tube up your butt. Everything will be fine. Everyone will be happier. We'll be more awake. We'll be more kind. And we'll all be doing dope shit.
Dope shit.
Oh my God, amazing. I had no idea that would tie back like that. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, Jessica, you're the best. All right, my last question for you, because I know we got to let you go, but bringing it back, what is your greatest insight or discovery about life and entrepreneurship?
Oh my God, this is so good. That's such a big question. What is my greatest discovery about life and entrepreneurship?
And if you say coffee enemas, like that's fine. But, if you have another response, that's also equally fine.
I would say that my greatest discovery is also my greatest opportunity and real-time lesson, which is entrepreneurship is life's deepest, most challenging, and most profound personal growth school. And it is a daily test of your self-awareness, your power, your patience, your confidence, your worthiness. It is the ultimate human upgrade. And I think that if you're willing to be graceful with yourself and remember that this whole thing, when I say this whole thing, I mean life is just a hologram, you can have a lot more fun with it. And that is also its own challenge. But with that, I will say that your business and therefore your career will only grow and expand to the degree in which you personally, mentally, spiritually expand. And so that's what I've learned.
Game on, man. Love it.
I love you.
It.
You're amazing. You're so sweet. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you had me on your show.
I could gush about you forever. Forever. But you're a busy lady. We got to let you go. Jessica, thank you so much for being a guest on Welcome to Eloma. If anybody else wants to be healthily obsessed with you in the way that I am, what's the best way healthily? Like don't be a creeper. What's the best way to get in touch or find you?
best way to get in touch or find me is you can go to SimplyBeAgency.com to learn about my company and involved there if you're interested. You can go to my personal website, jessicazweig.com, where you can learn a little bit more about my book. I've got some online courses over there. And you can find me on Instagram, where I do spend most of my time. And I'm just at Jessica Zweig over there, my full name.
Amazing. You are just a delight. You are just a delight. Thank you so much for being on the show. And for all the listeners out there, if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and leave a review wherever you're listening. Jessica, thank you again.
Thank you, Kiley. I can't wait to hear this. And I love you. And I'm always in your corner.
Thank you so much. Back at you. To continue learning how to better build your business and make your vision a reality, subscribe to the Welcome to Eloma email list at welcometoeloma.com.